Welcome to Coding Required. Let's talk about writing better if statements. Here's an example of a wild if statement that I found in my code base. It's kind of long and hard to read. Let's make it better. When the if statement becomes longer than 80 to 120 characters, the very first thing I do is to break it into multiple lines. So this becomes this. This is definitely an improvement, but it's still far from being readable. Next, I find putting parentheses on its own line makes it more readable. So this becomes this. The next adjustment we're going to make is to move the operators to the front. This helps me immediately identify if you're dealing with an AND or an OR situation. So this, it becomes this. There's also a hidden benefit to this. Adding an extra condition is as simple as duplicating the existing line. Here are some additional guidelines that I use to make sure my if statements are not iffy. Next up, never mix your operators. I go out of my way to avoid mixing the AND and the OR operators. If you're not careful, you may introduce logical errors very easily. This may look innocent enough at a first glance, but will fail if the inventory is null. Let's look at ways we can avoid doing this. So what's better than one if statement? Two if statements. Splitting the if statements is an easy way not to do this. So this becomes this. You can also use variables to simplify it. So this becomes this. Everybody loves descriptive variable names. Another approach is just to rethink the problem and invert the conditions. Instead of taking actions when the conditions are prime, why not abort the method if the conditions are less than ideal? So instead of doing this, we can just do this. But aren't we overlooking the simplest way to solve the current problem? Yes, we could have used the existential operator, but hey, not all languages have it. But for those that does, here is how it goes. This is now just this. Early on, I touched about using variables for the conditions, but honestly, I find myself not extracting statements into variables as much as possible. So while on the left have meaningful variable name, checking the logic requires several jumps. If the variable moves around, it becomes harder to check the condition, while the non-variable version, at least to me, feels easier to read, understand, and maintain. So here's my verdict. These are a few guidelines that I use to write better if statements. It's important to remember these are guidelines and not rules. So feel free to use what resonates with you. Remember, only a Sith deals in absolutes. Peace out.